Welcome, dear viewers. My name is Sagar Chawda. I am the first year student of Department of English, Maharaja Krishna Kumar Seji Bhavnagar University. On the occasion of Teachers' Day 2025, I am going to present a poem Where the Mind is Without Fear by Rabindranath Tagore. So, Where the Mind is Without Fear is written by Rabindranath Tagore. And Rabindranath Tagore was poet, philosopher, reformer, and painter all rolled into one. He was the first Nobel laureate from Asia. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913 for his collection of verses Gitanjali. In the poem we are going to discuss, Where the Mind is Without Fear, is the poem number 35 in the collection. It was originally composed in Bengali under the title Chito Jetha Bhai Shunyo. It was in genre was a prarthana, a prayer. It transcends patriotism. It was a kind of a spiritual and philosophical manifesto written in colonial India response to oppression, inequality, and fragmentation that we can find in British rule in India. So, the poem, before we jump into the analysis, let me give you some quick context. That Tagore wrote this poem around 1900 during British colonial rule in India. This wasn't just a poem about India, it was Tagore's a universal vision for what any free society should look like. So now let me read the first lines and start with the poem itself. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free. This line sets the entire foundation for Tagore's vision. When he says mind is without fear, he is talking about complete mental liberation. Think about it. Under British rule, Indians couldn't freely express their thoughts without fear of persecution. They lived in constant anxiety about speaking up or thinking differently. But Tagore wants more than just the absence of fear. He wants the head held high, which makes the line more memorable and impactful. He says that every man in this nation should live with dignity. Next, where knowledge is free. This might seem simple, but it's revolutionary. During colonial times, education was restricted to the upper classes and often controlled by authorities. Tagore is demanding universal access to knowledge, no barrier based on caste, class, religion, gender, or wealth. But free knowledge means more than just accessible education. It also means freedom from propaganda and indoctrination. Education should enlighten people, not manipulate them. It should help develop critical thinking, not blind obedience that we see in the religion as well. This line is crucial because Tagore believed that only through education could people truly become free. Now we are going to discuss the third and fifth line. It was the architecture of a unified world, where he visions a world where unity is prevalent, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. This is one of the most powerful images in the poem. The world broken up into fragments represents how society becomes divided and weakened when people separate themselves based on superficial differences. That differences do not exist in our life, but we just create them. The key phrase here is narrow domestic walls. This is a brilliant metaphor for all the barriers people create. Divisions based on religion, caste, region, language, and nationality. Tagore calls them narrow because these divisions are petty and limiting. Remember, the British used a divide and rule strategy, exploiting existing social divisions to maintain control. Tagore is directly challenging this by envisioning a unified world where people work together despite their differences. The alliteration with word and words adds to the musical quality of the verse, where words come out from the depth of truth. Now, Tagore is emphasizing authentic, truthful communication. He wants words that come from genuine conviction, not superficial politeness or deceptive manipulation. Depth of truth suggests that our words should reflect our innermost beliefs and be based on careful thought, not shallow opinions or external pressure. During colonial times, these were the prevalent notions that people often had to be deprecators, saying that authorities wanted to hear while hiding their true feelings. Tagore envisions a society where people can speak authentically without fear. The alliteration with words continues the musical pattern we have been seeing. Now, he says that people in this nation should work with conviction, where tireless striving stretches its arm towards perfection. This line is about the relentless pursuit of excellence. Tireless striving means this effort should be sustained and passionate, not half hearted or temporary. The beautiful part is stretches its arm toward perfection. This is personification. Tagore gives human qualities to the abstract concept of striving. It's like a person reaching out to grasp something beyond their reach. This reflects Tagore's belief that individuals and nations should constantly work to improve themselves rather than becoming complacent. The goal of perfection represents the highest ideals of human achievement. Notice the alliteration with tireless, striving, and stretches. It creates a sense of continuous motion and effort. Now we come to perhaps the most complex metaphor in the poem, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit. This is an extended metaphor constructing two powerful images. The clear stream of reason represents logical, rational thinking that flows naturally and benefiting everyone it touches, like a clear stream that lets you see the bottom. Clear reasoning lets you understand problems thoroughly. Here, another example of reason and logic, we can say the example of Swami Vivekananda, who also blends the elements from both religion and reason. He does not believe in reason or religion, which is based on irrationality and comes with irrational arguments. So, this metaphor suggests that reason can become lost when people stop thinking critically and just follow established patterns without questioning them. A desert is barren and lifeless. Similarly, dead habits are practices that serve no useful purpose but continue through mere inertia. So, in colonial India, Tagore was the person who blends the elements of both East and West. He says that the elements of West that are good, which is reason and logic and life with practical. They see life with practical elements. They do not delve deep into anything that is irrational or illogical. So he is working and he is saying that we should begin our thinking by rationality. We should not believe in anything blindly. So this is mainly the concept of waste, and he says that this concept should also be applied into our country as well. Here, the alliteration in dreary desert dead emphasizes the lifelessness of these outdated practices. Now, we come to the concluding part of the poem. Here, he says, where the mind is led forward by thee. Here, thee is addressed to God, into ever widening thought and action. Here, we can see that Tagore introduces the divine element with the referring to God. He acknowledged that human progress requires spiritual guidance alongside rational effort. Here we can see the idea of East. In East, people believe in spirituality, in religion, and on the uh, first part of the poem, we say that he also wants reason, the clear stream of reason in his utopian nation, and he also wants some guidance from spiritual elements as well. He says that the word ever widening suggests that human potential is limitless. We should never stop growing in understanding and capability. This is the idea of waste, but he says that we should combine this idea with the idea of spirituality of East as well. Ever widening thought and action emphasizes continuous intellectual and moral expansion. So, this reflects Tagore's philosophy that true freedom involves both contemplation of thought and implementation of action. Thought without action is ineffective, while action without thought can be misguided. The widening metaphor suggests moving from narrow, self centered concerns to broader, more universal perspectives. Now we come to the final lines of the poem. Into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. Heaven of freedom represents the ultimate goal of a perfect society embodying all the qualities described in the previous lines. So we say that all the notions that Tagore depicted in the poem earlier are for his nation, are for his country. By calling it heaven, Tagore suggests this ideal state would be transcends and blessed. My father here shows Tagore's personal relationship with God, while representing God as the universal parent of all humanity. Let my country awake uses the metaphor of awakening from sleep, suggesting that India and all nations, not only India, are currently in spiritual slumber. The awakening represents consciousness, enlightenment, and the realization of human potential. This final line completes the poem's structure. All the previous where clauses describes the condition of this heaven of freedom. So this was the poem by Rabindranath Tagore. Now let's discuss some poetic devices in the poem. In narrow domestic walls, we can say metaphor in personification, tireless striving stretches its arm, and we can also see personification in my country awake as well. Metaphorical contrast, metaphor of heaven of freedom, a paradise of liberty. Personification, let my country awake, that we see earlier. And now, the poetic craft, structure, language, and tone. Here comes the interesting part. Form and structure, the power of single sentence. The poem is written in free verse, unconstrained by a rigid rhyme scheme or metrical pattern. So we say that Rabindranath Tagore wants freedom, freedom of thought as well. He rejects the rigid idealism of all kind. By rejecting the dead habit of conventional poetic forms, Tagore practices the very principle he preaches in the poem itself. The rhetoric of aspiration, the grammatical structure which delays the main clause, let my country awake, until the very end is a masterful rhetoric strategy. It begins with a sense of wistful longing and deep yearning as Tagore sketches his utopian vision. Here is the conclusion. Tagore's vision goes beyond political independence, calling for fearlessness, dignity, truth, unity, reason as the true foundation of liberty. For India's independence struggle to today, the poem remains a guiding moral compass, reminding us that the heaven of freedom is still an unfinished journey. We should strive for this perfection, as he says in the third or fourth line of his poem. This poem contains universal appeal. By rising above nationalism, Tagore offers a global anthem of hope, urging every nation and generation to awaken, overcome fear and prejudice, and strive for an enlightened human world. So here, our analysis of where the mind is without fear concludes. So, thank you, all of you, for listening to me. Have a great day.